boy, we got a lot to talk about today. The shadow government is very real. Call it the deep state, call it career bureaucrats, a ruling class. They need to be held accountable. What I'm hearing now about these meetings going on inside the Pentagon, and let's be very clear, when it comes to the Pentagon, when it comes to the State Department and every other agency, but those two being the most important, the shadow government is installed there. They are ingrained there. They are dug in there, and they will do everything they can to not just limit President Trump's power, but take away his power and disobey any order he gives. This idea that there's meetings going on inside the Pentagon about what should happen if President Trump gives them an order they don't want to obey with. I'm not even going to use the term unconstitutional order because President Trump is not going to give an unconstitutional order. He will give orders well within his rights as commander in chief. They may claim it's unconstitutional because they don't want to do what he wants to do, and that is remove us from foreign wars, stop the altercations going on around the globe. Why? So we don't have to get involved in foreign wars. And again, President Trump is not an isolationist. President Trump is simply a common sense military strategist. We will win the battles we need to win, and mostly we win those battles before they ever start because President Trump's unpredictability, his strength, his willingness to hit back and hit back hard stops many of these altercations from ever even unfolding. So now we got them meeting inside the Pentagon. We need to figure out who's involved. We need to have transparency on this. They need to be held accountable, and they most certainly need to be removed from the Pentagon because I believe they pose a national security risk if they are going to disobey commands from the commander-in-chief. Then on top of that, we get word that there's talk amongst Democrats that Joe Biden should step down and give Kamala Harris the right to be called the first president ever in the United States. She would then steal the mantra of 47 from President Trump. This is the worst idea possible. First off, it's embarrassing for Kamala Harris. Would they really go down this road? It's widely being talked about. Here's a little tidbit for you. Joe Biden's going to stand in the way of that happening. I guarantee it. We'll talk about why coming up. Before we get into the show, I want to tell you about my friends over at Colonial Metals Group. The war on the U.S. dollar is still very strong, even with the election of President Trump. This is going to ramp our enemies up, trying to destroy the American dollar, not use it. And even more than that, are you convinced that spending is going to go down under President Trump? The increase or rate of spending growth may decrease, but spending's not going to go down. The price of gold went up over President Trump's last 4 years. We have a government spending problem that is out of control. I would love for President Trump to get that in control, but we still have uncertainty. We still have people that want to do us great harm. We still have central banks buying gold around the world. So if you want to protect the assets that you work so hard for, gold is really a great option for you. Talk to them about how much. Colonial Metals Group. To get your free gold guide, just go to freegoldguide.com/Grant. That's freegoldguide.com/Grant. Or you can shoot a picture of the QR code. It'll take you right to the website, and they'll send it right to you. It's a great resource. freegoldguide.com/Grant. You can call them at 800-458-7356. Numbers on your screen, 800-458-7356. They've helped so many Rumble viewers, Stinchfield viewers, and I promise you'll be happy with them. They're good folks over there at Colonial Metals Group. All right, with that, folks, I want to talk about what is going on in Washington. To me, this is nothing short of insanity, nothing short of arrogance. Kamala Harris has never won anything on her own. She continues to be handed positions. First, we talked about her going into the Supreme Court. I don't think that's a good idea. They want Sonia Sotomayor to step down now. I don't think you're going to see her do it. And I don't think you're going to see her be able to get pushed through the United States Senate in time with hearings. You've got Dana Bash and her guest on CNN floating the idea that, okay, before that happens, let's install Kamala Harris as president. Let Joe Biden step down. Listen to this.
71 days from Trump taking the oath of office. What is the most important thing that everybody is looking for? That is my question. I'll start with you.
Joe Biden has been a phenomenal president. He's lived up to so many of the promises he's made. There's one promise left that he could fulfill, being a transitional figure. He could resign the presidency in the next 30 days, make Kamala Harris the president of the United States.
Whoa.
It would absolve
Wow.
her from being able to, from having to oversee the January 6th transition, right, of her own defeat. And it would make sure that it would dominate the news at a point where Democrats have to learn drama and transparency and doing things that the public want to see is the time. This is the moment for us to change the entire perspective of how Democrats
Okay, this
operate.
is now
Change the perspective of how they operate. This is exactly how Democrats operate. They want to hand everything to their chosen one. Just ask Bernie Sanders about that. And then march Kamala Harris in. I told you I don't think they'll be able to push through a radical agenda between now and January 20th. I do think both the House of Representatives will manage to stand in their way. I don't think Joe Biden's going to do anything crazy with executive actions because they're just going to be rolled back in 2 months. So I don't think that's a possibility. Now, if Kamala Harris gets in, Lord knows what she'd do in 2 months. Seriously. She might get in, tell Sonia Sotomayor to step down, force her out, and then appoint herself as Supreme Court Justice. Though I don't put anything by this devious woman called Kamala Harris. None of this works out. You know, she's going to go to California and run for governor. But for this guy to say that Democrats need to learn drama, have you been watching your own network, CNN and MSNBC? All Democrats operate in is drama. The vote last week was about getting away from the drama. We don't want it anymore. We don't want the radicalization of this country. We don't want our kids indoctrinated. We were fed up with unsafe streets and an open border and out of control inflation. This was about no drama. Yeah, let President Trump call people some names. Big deal. I get a kick out of it. This is about no drama. This guy's out of line.
from an internet meme to a Sunday morning show.
Jamal's out here right now in the
Congratulations.
season of House of Cards.
I thought you were going to say, what about the Supreme Court? That's also out there.
Well, the Supreme Court might happen. I don't know if it will, but I think this is something that's in Joe Biden's control. And if he did it, it would fulfill his last promise. It would give Kamala Harris the chance to be the 47th president of the United States of America. It would disrupt all of Donald Trump's paraphernalia. Right? He'd have to rebrand everything. But and it would make it easier for the next woman who runs for president to not have to worry about all the historical, weight of being the first. We can
Top
solve
that,
this problem
Brad.
in the
I
next
have
30
something
days.
that's a lot more realistic.
So think about that. He really is concerned about ruining President Trump's paraphernalia, by the way. It's not a joke. They have tried to financially destroy him. They take any pleasure they can get off of making life difficult for President Trump. So clearly, 45, 47. Club 47 in Palm Beach. You got all the 47 gear being printed. I've got sneakers with 47 on them. All that would have to be reprinted. All right. One, big deal. We're still president of the United States come January 20th, but it's what she does in between. And really, even more importantly, because let's be honest, folks, this isn't going to happen. Joe Biden despises Kamala Harris today. I'm convinced Joe Biden voted for President Trump and told his family to vote for President Trump. Joe Biden hates what happened to him. And he's looking now, he says, hey, I got 81 million votes, wink, wink, created the biggest voter fraud organization in American history. He got 81 million votes. And look at her, 70 million or 60-something million. Not even close. Those votes went poof. And we should not ever stop talking about that. Because that's what doesn't add up. That Joe Biden gets 81 million votes. She now has 70 million votes. It makes no sense. Unless, of course, you go back to what I believed. That the fraud was real and the election was manufactured. They couldn't do it again this year because enough of the manufactured votes were reined back in with an inability to do it because we put some election integrity provisions in place across the states. We've got to even get better with it, by the way, folks. I believe this would have been the outcome last time around if they didn't cheat. So now they want to cheat again and just make her the first president. Look, this is like putting the kid in. I mean, it's so harsh to say, but it's like the handicapped kid that gets to play at the end of the game and score a basket and nobody to putting her in like that is ceremonial. Is that what Kamala Harris wants to be known as? as the handicapped kid that they put in a ceremonial fashion. I know it sounds harsh, and I love when they do that with the kids, and it is a feel-good story, but Kamala Harris doesn't want that. She doesn't look at herself as that, I wouldn't think. But who knows? Maybe she'd take it so she can be called Madam President for the rest of her life. It's so despicable. Then we move on to this issue of secret meetings inside the Pentagon. Can you imagine? Secret meetings inside the Pentagon on how to push back against President Trump and any orders that he may give. This is the shadow government at work. This is the deep state at work. Make no mistake, this is very real. This story is real. They are trying and figuring out a way to concoct a plan where President Trump will not have control of his own military and in many cases his own state agencies. Here's the only problem. President Trump is going to put in charge of all of these state agencies strong MAGA conservatives who don't give a rat's ass about being liked. They don't give a rat's ass about getting elected sometime around. We're going to put in people who want change, that are willing to drain the swamp, root them out, and you know what? Cut them off at the knees. Once they're in, they're going to have a very hard time surviving. Now, can we rid all of Washington of the deep state? No. It's going to take far longer than 4 years. We saw that with President Trump. He couldn't get a lot of it done in 4 years. But why? He wasn't as experienced as he is now. President Trump is far better off now than he was then, and he's going to surround himself with good people. But still, this is Anderson Cooper. This is them talking about this idea.
Discussions at the Pentagon. I don't know at what level this is. It just seems like it's informal discussions. I guess it's understandable they would have those discussions. It also, Scott, is it?
Look, I don't like this because what's Donald Trump supposed to think? You know, he's sitting down there, he's the president-elect, and now he's got to read in the newspaper tonight that the unelected bureaucracy of the federal government is having meetings at some level about how to thwart or countermand the commander-in-chief. I don't care if it's at the Pentagon or at the HUD or Ag Department. It doesn't matter. The unelected bureaucracy of this government answers to the civilian and duly elected leadership that we just did. And what if you were in his shoes and you just won the popular vote with a clear mandate, and now you got to read that these unelected bureaucrats are plotting against you? What would you think? If
but
they
I
have
think
problems,
there's a reason
if
for
they
that,
let me
though.
finish. If they have problems, they should not have meetings that then leak to the press. If they have ideas or things, they should call the president's office and say, hey, we'd like to have some discussions for planning purposes. But secret meetings that leak? Terrible way to get off to a start with the new administration.
Well, I agree that that's maybe not the best way to do it. However, Trump has set them up to be in this situation where they think that he's coming after them.
Listen to me. This is more than just secret meetings and a terrible way to start. And I like Scott Jennings. There's a lot of talk about Scott Jennings. He'd make a great press secretary. Now, I think President Trump's going to put in a smoking hot smoke show in there, a real pretty girl that's very, very smart and brilliant, like all the people that surround him. But Scott Jennings would make a great press secretary. I mean, this guy's been great on CNN. Truth is, I wouldn't want to lose him from CNN. CNN finally has a decent conservative voice on there to counteract and counterbalance this nonsense. But I'll say this. This goes far beyond just a bad look before President Trump comes in. This amounts to a coup. This amounts to a situation where they are trying to control every aspect of government when they are not in control. This is what we mean when we say there is a shadow government. So what happens now? It's anyone's guess. But I do believe this. President Trump's going to get in. He'll promote a very strong Secretary of Defense. They'll get in there. They'll surround himself at the highest levels with only the generals that he can trust. And I would hope that General Mike Flynn has a role in all of this. Maybe call in Lieutenant Colonel Alan West to play a role in some of this, in rooting out some of these people. Tony Schaefer is another guy I have great respect for. Derek Harvey comes on my Real America's Voice show. Colonel Derek Harvey. This is a guy who is brilliant. He knows who the players are. Get these guys back in there, create a committee, and figure out how to right the ship at the Pentagon, because that ship is most certainly sinking. The most powerful military on the face of the earth is not as powerful as it was under President Trump. Here's Rye B on the YouTube chat. It will not be Trump's revenge they should worry about. It will be God's revenge. Maybe so. I think in many respects, God's revenge was helping President Trump get elected. And that is a very, very big thing. Victoria writes in the Rumble chat, every time a new leader is chosen, it is a coup. Just a collection of current and future for myself leaders. Maybe not, though. President Trump's not in this for himself. Sure, he's got a big ego, but he deserves to have a big ego. President Trump, I know the man personally, is in this for one reason and one reason only, to make America great again. He loves this country. He loves what this country provided him. He wants his kids and his grandkids to have the future and ability to succeed like he did. He wants that for every single American, whether they supported him or not. I don't think President Trump is in this for selfish reasons. So in many respects, Victoria, I see what you're saying, but I disagree when it comes to many levels. There will be people that go to work for President Trump and his administration that are not doing this for themselves. What is your risk? You go to work for President Trump now, you have a more chance of going to prison than you do of coming out and getting a cushy job. It used to be you get a real cushy job after you work for a presidential administration, making millions of dollars for a lobbying firm. That's not the case anymore. Now you end up in federal prison. All right, I'm going to play one more clip of Scott Jennings responding to all this. But before I do that, folks, I want to tell you about my friends over at get21now.com. This is 21% on your investment annualized rate of return, paid monthly. So it's mailbox money, cash flow. All right, I have invested with them. Get21now.com. NFN8 is the name of the company. It's about Bitcoin mining. Folks, have you seen Bitcoin over the last 2-3 days? All of the cryptocurrencies have exploded because President Trump is the cryptocurrency president. So this is about locking in. You're not going to get the wild swings. Bitcoin's going to come back down a little bit, and then it'll go back up. It'll come back down, and it'll keep going up and up and up, I believe. But if you don't want to deal with the wild swings and you want to lock into that 21%, who wouldn't? Go to get21now.com. I have done it. I've invested with them. I get my check every month, like clockwork, direct deposited into my account. I trust these guys. I know these guys. I've been around these guys. Institutional style Bitcoin mining, giant warehouses. They buy the electricity super cheap. You make an investment with them. They pay you 21%, up to 21%, depending on the deal you cut with them. Up to 21% interest, annualized, paid monthly. Get21now.com. Take part in this crypto craze without having to deal with the wild swings. That's what Get21now.com is all about. I urge you to pay them a visit. You won't regret it. I really believe that. All right, folks. So let me play one more clip of Scott Jennings, because this idea of these secret meetings, Pentagon officials pushing back to Trump orders, is now played out to Wolf Blitzer's show. So now he's got to respond to questions from Wolf Blitzer, who is a fraud.
Is that to you?
Well, I am a little concerned, honestly, if the federal bureaucracy, whether it's in the Pentagon or any other agency, is already having discussions about how to countermand the commander-in-chief. I mean, let's remember how this works. He got elected president. He's the commander-in-chief. He gives the orders. They follow them. And so I don't like the idea, candidly, Wolf, of non-elected government people at any level having meetings with each other about how to thwart the duly elected president of the United States. So I'm really hoping that when Donald Trump names his nominee for the Pentagon, and then they take office and you have your National Security Council in place, that we have a much better working relationship between the White House and the Pentagon than what I'm reading tonight, which is one part of the federal government already having some kinds of meetings about what it would look like to thwart the president. That's not a good way to start.
But let me follow up, Scott. Let me follow up with you, because Trump, as president, will be the commander-in-chief. But what these Pentagon officials are considering right now and discussing among themselves, what if he gives the Pentagon, the U.S. military, illegal orders to do certain things?
There's already provisions for that. The military knows those provisions. Now, what would constitute an illegal order? Turning the military on American citizens. That's what would. You think President Trump's going to do that? This Wolf Blitzer is so ugly. And when I say ugly in an ugly political manner, he's not the greatest looking guy in a physical manner either. But this guy is so bad. He is so leftist, so biased. CNN should be ashamed of themselves that he still got this guy on air just from his stupid questions here.
What do they do then?
My advice to them would be, instead of talking to each other, talk to the president and talk to his senior staff. Because look what's happened. They're having these meetings. Now it's out in the open. I mean, what is Donald Trump supposed to think now? You've already got the government, the bureaucracy, plotting against you or thinking the worst of you. So to me, the best thing that could happen here is for them to talk to each other, meaning the Pentagon people and the president and his team. That's what really ought to happen. So I hope these secret meetings that now somehow find their way into the press, that really needs to stop. And we need more communication between the incoming government and the people who are already in the building.
I'm not a big fan of leakers, except when the leak works in my favor. Now, I'm not sure if the leakers were well-intentioned on this. They may be trying to sow chaos. But there's another side of this, that the leakers here may be well-intentioned. That maybe the leakers want to sound the alarm and issue a warning to President Trump. These conversations are going on. They're happening, and you've got to fix the situation. And I would offer up, you fix this situation before you even get into office. Now, President Trump and his transition team will start to be talking to those officials inside the Pentagon. They'll already be starting many conversations. Many of the transition team, many who will be assigned to the Department of Defense, will be talking to generals that they trust. This is where the process of rooting out these corrupt shadow government members, the deep staters inside the Pentagon, starts. And it ends when President Trump gets back in. This has to happen. And the civil service laws, all of these things that prevent people from getting fired. If this is the case, then you transfer these people and you transfer them to Anchorage, Alaska, and you get a giant building over there and you let them push paper and see if they quit. You don't need to fire them. Move them around, get them out. All right. If the civil service laws are going to prevent you from firing even civilian workers inside the Pentagon, State Department, Energy Department, all of these places, transfer them, move them, see how quickly they last. I promise you they won't last very long. So now what we have, and this has been fun to watch over the course of the weekend, because Democrat pundits are now trying to save their asses by talking about all the things the Democrats did wrong. Now, sometimes they still remain a little delusional. Dana Bash on CNN says the voters didn't get to know Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris was vice president of the United States for the last 4 years. What do you mean we don't know her? We watched her cackle around the country for 4 years. We know her plenty good, but this is what you get from Dana Bash and CNN when they try to make excuses for Harris.
Donald Trump has been running for 2 years. Kamala Harris has been running for 107 days. So one of my big questions is, particularly with her candidacy, is whether that was just enough time to introduce herself to the country and to candidates who were dead set on voting for a Democrat, weren't so sure about him, or whether she could have used a little bit more time.
More time? Are you kidding me? The longer this campaign went on, did you notice what happened for Kamala Harris? The worse she did. The more people got to know her, the more they realized, you know what? We don't like her. And you know who realized this? Bill Maher. Bill Maher did a lot to get President Trump elected. I know you're going to think I'm crazy on this, but he really did. He called the left out when they pushed nonsensical wokeness. He called them out when they pushed lies against President Trump. And he's calling them out now on this idea that Kamala Harris's campaign just wasn't long enough.
They set Kamala Harris up to fail. That was a 3-month campaign, and she was supposed to introduce herself to the American people. No wonder people were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out? And so...
No. You're saying 3 months wasn't long enough?
I mean...
it was too long. It was long enough. It was long enough.
If they had a primary...
It's not that they didn't have time to introduce. They met someone and they didn't like them.
That's the fact. Kamala Harris is the most unlikable woman in politics next to Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama. Though Michelle Obama has a lot of people that love her. Hillary Clinton does too, but they're polarizing figures. Kamala Harris doesn't have anybody that likes her. These people that are out there, Kamala Mamala, they weren't for Kamala Harris. They were just for the Democrat. They know that she's unlikable. She's so phony baloney with her fake accents and her cackling, her inability to voice any policies. Her refusal to just tell the truth about her radicalism had people not liking her. So we go from Dana Bash and other Democrats making an excuse that it just wasn't enough to the best part, which is the liberal networks realizing where things went wrong when they run down the exit polling. And this, to me, is what I was hoping for. This is what it's all about. This is the crying. This is the post-assessment that I wanted to see the left-wing fake news media making.
Not just Donald Trump winning the election, but winning the popular vote. First time in 2 decades for a Republican. And how did he do it? He did it by transforming the Republican Party. It is now more diverse than it's ever been in modern times, and certainly much more than when Donald Trump first came on the scene 8 years ago. A lot of ways to look at this. How about this here? When it says pre-Trump, that's the last presidential election before Donald Trump started running. You got to go back to 2012.
All right, I want you to really look at this. Pre-Trump numbers, under 30, Democrats were plus 23. Income under 50,000, Democrats were plus 22. Non-college degree, Democrats were plus 4. Okay? I'm going to play this out. Wait till you see the change. Republicans are now a diverse party. In many respects, just as diverse as the Democrats. I'm not going to say the Democrats aren't diverse, but the Democrats certainly play to that liberal, whiny, diploma-toting, liberal, suburban mom is who they play to. No longer.
For that. Remember, 3 straight elections, Trump's been the Republican candidate. So pre-Trump, voters under 30 were going for the Democrats by 23 points. Folks with incomes under 50,000, 22 points for the Democrats. Folks without college degrees, 4 points for the Democrats. That's pre-Trump. What comes out of this election? Look at some of these shifts. The youth vote, that Democratic margin cut more than in half. Voters under 50,000, now a Republican constituency. Voters without a college degree. Look at that shift, now a core Republican constituency.
Folks, look at the numbers here, okay? Plus 11 Democrats. That's cut in half from when they were plus 23 for under 30. Under 50,000, it's a Republican advantage. Same thing with no college degree. It's amazing.
And then we can talk about race, ethnicity. This gets into that diversity I mentioned a minute ago. Check this out. Again, pre-Trump versus now. The black vote still overwhelmingly Democratic, but that's a 15-point shift. It used to be 87 points for the Democrats, down to 72. How about this? You've heard a lot about it this week. This is what the numbers look like. Hispanic voters were 44 points Democratic before Donald Trump. Now, basically a toss-up constituency, and Asian Americans, a 32-point shift there as well. That's what's happened to the Republican Party since Donald Trump became its standard bearer 8 years ago. This has been the movement.
All right, folks. I had said in 2020 that if President Trump could get 13% of the black vote, I think he'd win. We're now getting 25% roughly of the black vote. If Republicans continue to make gains with black folks, quite frankly, if they continue just to keep 25% of the black vote, we'll never lose another election again. Now, we'll have to do something to screw it all up like the Democrats did. They could have said the Democrats were never going to lose another election again, except they screwed it all up. They screwed America up with their radicalism. And thank the Lord Jesus that American people saw through this. It restored my faith in the American public. It really did. And you look at the American public from the exit polling. Look at this. Again, CNN having to spell this out. That 43, 50, 60, almost plus 70% plus of the United States is dissatisfied or angry with where the country is headed. You're not going to win elections like that.
It's a pretty dour mood in terms of the way people feel things are going in the United States. Nationally, only 7% of voters say they're enthusiastic.
7% of voters think you're enthusiastic? That's probably a mistake in the percentage of error column. 7% think you've done a good job? How do you expect to win the election? You can't. Listen.
19% say they're satisfied. Look at these numbers. 43% dissatisfied, 29% angry, 72% of the electorate.
72% of the electorate dissatisfied or angry. I love President Trump. His policies are spot on and great. But thank you, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Now I can say it. We've survived 4 years. It was rough. It wasn't easy. A lot of us had a lot of uncertainty. There's been jobs lost. You can't buy a home. Gas prices are killing you. You've lost money in your bank account. All of it is really sucks. But you know what? If there's a silver lining, you screwed it up so much. We got President Trump back into office. And really, President Trump's policies is, in my opinion, what got us there. And the American people realized this stuff wasn't working. Here's NBC talking about the same thing. I mean, it's great to see these networks talking about the same things, that this isn't working. And I told you folks, I believe the media controls the Democrats. So should we be concerned that the media is waking up to what really was the reality that the American people were pushing back? Will the media then move the Democrats back to the middle? If that happens, it's going to be harder to beat them next time around.
Now, those victories powered by populist frustration, with exit polls showing 3/4 of voters feel dissatisfied or angry about the way things are going in the country. Nearly half of voters saying they strongly disapprove of President Biden. The share who say they've gotten worse off under the current administration, the highest ever in exit polls that have asked the question, surpassing the Great Recession.
Look at 2020. We're worse off. It was the best it's ever was after President Trump. 20% of American people said they're worse off. I don't know how they were. It's probably on them. In just 4 years, nearly half the country says that they're worse off. Here, look, I'll show you the graph. Nearly half the country says they're worse off than they were 4 years ago. Again, you are not going to win elections when that is going down. That just isn't going to happen. So what does this mean? Now, Kamala Harris's campaign is broke. President Trump comes out with a tweet over the weekend virtually offering to bail Kamala Harris's campaign out. Now, I think it was a troll. I don't think he's really going to offer up some of the money the RNC has or President Trump's campaign has to pay Kamala Harris $20 million. Because there's going to be another election cycle in 2 years. And it starts like 2 weeks from now, once we know who controls the House. I would really prefer that $20 million to go to down ballot races, because President Trump's not running again, than I do to Kamala Harris. I donated to President Trump's campaign. I didn't donate a tremendous amount of money, but I don't know if it was $1,000. I don't want that money going to Kamala Harris. It's the last place I want it going to. It is a nice troll gesture, but you can see why Democrats are mad. I saw this woman, Lindy Lee. She's on the finance committee of the DNC. She raised a lot of money for Kamala Harris, and she's ticked off about $1 billion being wasted.
I actually think President Biden, the whole endorsing her 30 minutes after he dropped out, I think that was a big FU to the party. You don't want me, here's somebody that you may not like, but deal with it,
Suggesting that he's sticking the party with Kamala
Kind of
Harris.
like sticking it to the man.
Yeah, but help me understand your perspective on that, because you worked for Kamala Harris.
I didn't. I'm a donor.
You're a donor.
Technically, I'm not on anyone's payroll. I'm not beholden to anyone. That's why I'm here telling the truth. I'm not here to gaslight anybody. This is just the truth.
And what is the truth?
So think about it. She doesn't work for Kamala Harris's campaign, but she worked for the finance committee, and she raised a lot of money for these donors. And so what she first says there is that Joe Biden screwed Kamala Harris and screwed the Democrat Party by coming right out, endorsing her, and giving the party her. Now, if there was a primary, I promise you, they would have had somebody better than Kamala Harris, and it would have been harder to beat for President Trump. But I also believe the Democrats had made their bed. President Trump was so good and ran such a good campaign, even in the wake of all the lawfare, all the media coming after him, everything they did with the lies and the negative advertising and all of it that amounted literally to lies. He literally ran one of the greatest presidential campaigns in American history, if not the greatest. All right, let's let her continue because I think she speaks for a lot of donors to Kamala Harris.
The truth is, this is just an epic disaster. This is a $1 billion disaster. Actually, it was $1.018 billion, I think, right? There were $20 million or $18 million in debt.
Right.
It's incredible. And
she calls it a disaster, by the way. So this is a DNC Finance Committee member who's calling Kamala Harris's campaign an absolute disaster.
I raised millions of that. I have friends that I have to be accountable to and to explain what happened because I told them it was a margin of error race. I was promised, Jen O'Malley Dillon promised all of us that Harris would win. She even put videos out saying that Harris would win. I believed her. My donors believed her. And so they wrote massive checks. I feel like a lot of us were misled. And even on the night of election night, Will, I looked somebody in the eye and I said, are we going to do this? Are we going to pull it off? She told me yes. And I asked somebody else, like, how are you feeling? He's like, we're going to win Iowa. And I was like, what?
Do you think, did they believe this going in? Was there a real sense of false confidence on the side of Kamala Harris? Or did they know they were in store for disaster?
I was wondering about that. I was like, I asked them, are you privy to internal numbers that I am not seeing? Because I study this so carefully, and I just wasn't seeing any basis for that level of confidence.
Because the Democrats typically operate in a state of delusion or cheating. If they can't cheat to win, then they're delusional about what they think is going to happen. Just as they're delusional about the transgender issues, they're delusional about, this is at least the well-intentioned Democrats. You've got other Democrats who aren't delusional. They're trying to destroy America on purpose. But the well-intentioned are literally delusional about these policies that think they're going to be good. They probably were delusional about where the election was headed. Hey, for those of you, and I know we have a lot of new viewers, and I'm so grateful for you, for all of you that are watching now that haven't seen me before, thank you, with a huge thank you. Please copy the link and share it on X and Facebook and Instagram, all the places, True Social. Share the link, spread the word. Stinchfield's army is real. We're growing leaps and browns thanks to Rumble and the support we're getting from this community. But for those of you that knew me, I told you President Trump was up 10 to 15%, and I've been saying that for the last month and a half, maybe longer. And it turned out I was right, and they were wrong, but they were lying to you. I actually believed it. I don't even know if those people believed it. So now comes the excuses and the blame game. I have a montage to play for you of this blame game, which is pretty freaking hilarious. But before I play that for you, I want to tell you about my friends over at Energized Health. You know, I was on an 88-day program. I just finished it up a little bit ago. I lost 15 pounds. I was already in pretty good shape, but I got myself hydrated like you wouldn't believe. My energy levels skyrocketed. They soared. My visceral fat, that inner fat, decreased tremendously. My muscle mass increased, all while losing weight. And remember, muscle's heavier. So I lost a lot of fat inside that pushes against your organs, all because of the Energized Health system. EnergizedHealth.com/grant. This worked for me. There's coaching, daily videos, weekly Zoom calls, recipes, everything you need to succeed with this journey through cellular hydration, inner cellular hydration. That's what it's about. I changed a little bit about the way I eat, a little bit. I had to work out a little bit, but nothing killed me. The diets didn't kill me. The workouts didn't kill me. This is about the science. So you don't need shots. You don't need crazy protein shakes and all this stuff. You just need the science and a little bit of willpower, just a little bit, because they're there with you the whole way. EnergizedHealth.com/grant. I urge you to check it out. A full mind, body, soul program that'll help you take your life back, whether you need to lose 200 pounds, 20 pounds, or 5 pounds. EnergizedHealth.com/grant. Go there today. All right. The montage that is another little deal that I just love. Of all of the excuses, what went wrong, Democrats? Why did you fail so bad? What was it about Kamala's campaign? Well, this is for your listening pleasure, okay?
Democrats now grappling with their stunning loss and trying to figure out what went wrong.
Had the president gotten out sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race. Kamala, I think, still would have won, but she may have been stronger having taken her case to the public sooner.
I think people never got to know Kamala Harris during the time she was in this campaign.
If the goal is to win elections on Twitter, then you should embrace movements like defund the police. But if the goal is to win elections in the real world, where it matters, then you have to appeal to working class people of color.
The party itself has increasingly become a smarty pants, suburban, college educated party.
I take issue sometimes with people saying, oh, the quote unquote left is the reason why this is happening. The ultimate problem is our ability to clearly and forthrightly advocate for an agenda that clearly champions the working class.
Joe Biden's decision to run for president again was a catastrophic mistake.
But we can all unite in knowing that Joe Biden would have lost and deserves a lot of blame for the situation that we're in.
It's really not, well, it's on Joe Biden, right? Because he is smart enough to know that he wasn't capable of doing this even 4 years ago. But it's on the Democrat leadership 4 years ago. Joe Biden should have never been their candidate. They should have had somebody else in the wings. It wasn't going to be Kamala Harris. They anointed Joe Biden, and then they were left with a corpse. With, a year out before the election, you got a guy who literally can't walk anymore. I mean, if you don't believe me, I don't know if you have seen this. This is Joe Biden on the beach over the weekend. The man can barely move. Oh, you even hear reporters going, oh, hold on, Joe. Whoa, you got it. Jill, grab his arm. Grab his leg. People are laughing. Why is he in the sand in sneakers where he has no balance left? No balance left in his head, no balance left in his body. And yet the poor guy is marched out on the beach? What are you going to say to Trump on Wednesday? They yell at him.
Mr. President, what are you going to talk with Trump on Wednesday?
Folks, do you think that is a picture of who should be leading the country? Of course not. The American people saw through it. In many respects, it was Joe Biden's fault that we're in this place. He never should have been the president the first time around. Not to mention all the cheating, right? I mean, that's really at the heart of it as well. So you got Joe Biden there, and then you've got Joe Biden being asked about his meeting with President Trump. This is quite funny.
President Trump still a threat to democracy.
You hear it? Let me play it again for you. Let me play it again.
Trump still a threat to democracy.
I'm going to see him on Wednesday.
What are you going to talk with him about?
What's going to say to him?
What are you going to tell to Trump?
What's your message for the G20, Mr. President?
I love the questions being screamed. Is President Trump still a threat to democracy? I'm going to tell you who the threat to democracy is. Democrats. Going back to the beginning of the program, you're going to install Kamala Harris as the 47th president so she can be there for 2 months? Come on. That's what I mean by totally ignoring, with no respect for how democracy works, how a representative democracy works. I know there'll be those of you out there that'll scream and yell, we're a representative government. I understand. Okay, I get it. So you've got that. You've got all of them making excuses. AOC doesn't want to acknowledge that it was AOC and the squad. Turns their back on Israel, turns their back on border security, turns their back on prosecuting crime in cities across America. She doesn't understand that all that led to where we are today. Instead, she wants to, blame, we don't know Kamala Harris well enough. So one of the guys that was also instrumental, I think, in President Trump's election, he doesn't know it, was Charlemagne the God, okay? In the beginning, his ridiculousness called into question just how delusional and uninformed the Democrats really are. But then, once he realized what was going on with the transgender agenda, watching him realize it real time woke a lot of people up, especially black folks that helped President Trump with 7 swing states.
I think that she should keep calling Donald Trump a fascist.
This is, by the way, before he made the switch, okay? Before he made the switch of realizing what's really going on in America.
I think that she should keep calling Donald Trump a fascist. And I think that Americans need to keep looking at the rhetoric of Donald Trump, because I don't know why we're even thinking about electing somebody who's talking about putting people in camps. I don't know why why we want to elect somebody who's talking about mass deportation. I don't know why we're having this conversation about somebody who wants to terminate the Constitution.
Don't y'all find it strange that now that he's won, they're not calling him a threat to democracy? They're not calling him a fascist. I mean, damn, on Monday.
They're not calling him anything.
They can. On Monday, they was just calling him that. I would think that, if you really believe that, then somebody's speech would be about how America effed up and how things are about to be really bad.
He's the most powerful man in the world now.
It just makes you wonder how much of it did they really believe, or how much of it was just politics.
Thank you, Charlemagne. The people in your studio are still idiots. It's not because he's the most powerful man in the world now and going to enact some kind of revenge on his critics. It's because they realize he's not a threat to democracy. They realize democracy won. They realize what the American people want. And so they've got to shut up. And that's what you're getting from the mainstream media. Most of it. Well, you're not really even getting it from the mainstream media, but they are, in many respects, I just showed you, laying out the argument for President Trump and why he won. So then the question becomes, what do you do come the holidays? We know that people are totally figuring this out. And by the way, Craig Muttley in the Rumble chat says Charlemagne is the fraud. He is a fraud, don't get me wrong. I mean, he's still a hardcore liberal, but him being intellectually honest here, you've got to give him credit for that, because it's not easy to do. And with that whole transgender commercials, his eyes popped out when he realized that Kamala Harris was giving prisoners sex change operations. He didn't want that. Lorik in the Rumble chat says Republicans, quote, "We may not agree with what you have to say, but we will support your rights to say it. Democrats, shut up. Stop talking about our crimes. We need to get rid of the Constitution. Shut up." It's so true. Look, you want to vote for Kamala Harris? I could care less, other than the fact that I feel like I'm going to lose my country if you're that dumb. But I'm not going to scream and yell at you. I may feel sorry for you. I may think you're an idiot, but I'm not going to just come fight with you or not talk to you. Or, in fact, I will argue that I don't want censorship on social media from any side. I say let them put up whatever they want to put up, even lies. Because I can figure out on my own what's lies or not. The Democrats, the complete opposite. See, they need to censor because the truth hurts them so much. They can't survive the truth. Once the truth starts to get out, they realize their entire arguments are blown. It's not going to work. So what do? They whine. They ostracize. They shut their families down. I mean, listen to this. First off, this Joy Reid is the most, she is an awful human being, okay? Talk about the definition of black power, racist against white people. That is Joy Reid. But I don't want her taken off the air. Let her stay on and spout her stuff to the people that agree with her. Who cares? She would want me taken off air. I promise you that. Because I speak the truth and she doesn't. But this is about bringing on a psychologist, I guess, that says, don't engage with your family if they voted for Trump. What psychologist comes up with this? Some leftist one. That's who.
Do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood. And it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why, to say, I have a problem with the way that you voted because it went against my very livelihood, and I'm not going to be around you this holiday. I need to take some space for me. And I actually talked to, adults as well as advising parents for children. I mean, I think, I don't think that you should force children. I don't think you should force adults to be around people just because they're your family. I think there's a level of, need to establish boundaries. And if you feel like you need to establish boundaries with people, whether they're your family or not, I think you should very much be entitled to do so. And I think it may be essential for your mental.
These people are nuts. That's a psychologist. That's who you want to get advice from. Shut your family down. Your belief in politics is far more important than your love of your mom and dad, sister, brother, whoever it may be. Come on. Many of you know, who've been watching me for a long time, that my father's a Trump hater. My mother is a hardcore liberal from New York who taught me everything I know about conservatism. Go figure that. I mean, I've said it before, but she taught me how to keep your head up high when things go bad. You can't rely on anybody. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Super important to do. You can make anything you want happen in life if you put your mind to it. Like, these are all fundamentals of conservatism that my liberal mother from New York taught me, yet she thinks she's a crazy liberal, mostly because of the abortion issue. 80-year-old woman that's worried about abortions. I mean, like, we have big things to worry about. Not that abortion isn't. It most certainly is. But Roe v. Wade is done. It's up to the states. Live in a state where you want abortion. It's that simple. I live in Texas for a reason. I don't believe in it, and I will fight to make it illegal in this state. But live in a state, you go to Massachusetts. I mean, you go all over the place. Abortion wasn't outlawed federally. And anyway, don't get me started on this topic. But it's not I'm not going to go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. I want to see my family. I love my family. Now, here's the other guarantee I can make you. And Trump's victory is going to make this easier because the Democrats are the ones that push. They're the ones that want to go down the road. They're the ones that want to argue and yell and scream. Typically, Republicans aren't. I know Republicans who get in yell and screaming matches. Don't get me wrong. We're just as guilty of it. But it often is started by wacky ideas of the left. They're going to be less eager to start a argument this time around because the country so resoundingly spoke in our favor. But still, folks, don't not go home. Just tell your family, hey, I don't want to talk about politics now on the holiday. I think it's important to talk about politics if you can do it in a respectful fashion. But if you've got a mom or dad, especially if they're older, why would you push them to the point where they just get so upset? You don't need to. But Democrats don't have that ability. I really don't think they do, which is what is so crazy. Hey, folks, while I got you here, speaking of that, you can always call your parents. I would recommend that you do that. And you call your parents by going to Patriot Mobile. PatriotMobile.com/Grant is the website. I have a Patriot Mobile phone. I love it. I use it. Well, my phone is my lifeline to everything, but nothing changed when I switched to Patriot Mobile. Nothing except for this. I save some money. I have 100% U.S.-based customer service where they answer the phone in a very quick fashion. I email them. They get right back to me. It's so much easier than Verizon and AT&T. Here's what else changed. I know that when I send my money to Patriot Mobile, it's going to a good cause. I do not want anybody funding the woke agenda anymore. In fact, I think we live in a post-woke era. Maybe that should be tomorrow's podcast. We live in a post-woke era. So let's start acting like it. And the way we do that is by supporting companies that believe in the things we do. Patriot Mobile is one of those companies. PatriotMobile.com/Grant, 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT. Use the promo code GRANT and you get a free month service, okay? Great savings. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. Stop funding the left. Take advantage of this great, great company that is fighting for you. Show them some support. They've been such supporters of mine. I'm grateful to Patriot Mobile. You will be too. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. 972-PATRIOT. Use that promo code GRANT for a free first month and tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right. I want to play a clip here, folks, of what we're up against now. Okay? This is the transgender nonsense. Even after the election of President Trump, they still don't understand. They still don't get it that we're pushing back against the trans agenda. This interaction unfolded on CNN, and it was, well, one, the gentleman who is calling out the trans agenda does a great job. The host, you could see how she's just totally gone woke. And the guy that's supporting the transgender agenda that says there's literally, he says trans girls are girls when they're not. They have male body parts. They should not be competing against girls. They are not even close to being girls from a physiological standpoint. They have great advantages with strength and speed. And yet he doesn't want to admit that. You have to watch it to believe it.
I think there are a lot of families out there who don't believe boys should play girls' sports.
They're not boys. I'm not going to listen to transphobia at this table. I am not going to listen to you call a trans girl a boy.
Are you going to allow me to finish my explanation?
When you use a word that's a slur, I'm going to interrupt. That's not how it is. They're not boys. They're not boys.
Yes, they are boys. Most of them have not had any kind of a sex change operation, and even that doesn't change you into being a girl. Now, it might decrease your testosterone. You might lose muscle mass, but you are still not a girl. These transgender boys that are pretending to be girls are boys. They have great advantage. This is why you see Leah Thomas, whatever his name is, I don't even know, kicking ass in women's sports. Can't even compete with men. But this guy wants to say they're not boys? Well, how do you figure?
You're not playing girls softball. I'm not going to sit there and listen to that.
Let's reset for a second because, look, this is a really heated issue, right? And Sharmichael, I know you. I know that you understand that people have different views on this. I think out of respect for Jay, let's try to talk about this in a way that is respectful.
Okay, so let me rephrase this since I'm being targeted here.
I don't. Just to be clear, you are not being targeted.
I am, but it's okay.
I'm specifically saying that I know that you are not intending to be transphobic.
He should know that I'm not. He wants to sit here and bloviate.
I'm saying you're using a phrase that you know.
So
the way regular people interpret it,
that's not regular people. That's not regular people. There's no.
Regular people understand that a boy pretending to be a girl is not a girl. And that boy still can't have children. They're not somehow going to get pregnant. They don't have a menstrual cycle. None of that happens. Why? You four-eyed freak. Because they're boys. That's why.
Consensus that these are actually boys. This whole thing about trans girls is a canard. We're talking about a tiny, tiny sliver of the population.
That may be the
and
case,
we're using that
my point in
to
terms
take
of
away
its
healthcare from
effectiveness.
thousands of people.
Hold on, just get to your point.
My point in terms of its effectiveness. Regular people with children look at these things and they say, you know what? This is a bit too far. I do not agree with this. I don't like this. I think Democrats are going way too much to the left on social issues. They're uncomfortable with it. A lot of people believe that. A lot of families believe that. You may disagree with that reality, but that's why Republicans kept running those ads over and over and over again, because they saw the metrics suggested that they were working.
In those ads over and over again and using rhetoric like you just used, saying this is boys playing girls sports. First of all, we're talking about 5 people in the entire country.
You would prefer?
We're talking about trans girls being allowed to play with the people who are in their gender. And if you don't believe, you don't have to listen to me. Listen to the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association.
The American Medical Association.
This is not about these.
Guys.
Can I just say, what an idiot. First off, could you imagine? I don't know if that guy's gay, the white guy with the glasses. I don't know if he's gay or even if he is. Can you imagine being married to that guy? A delusional, whiny, eyes closed to reality? Trans girls are girls? No, they are not even close. American Medical Association, if they try to claim that they are, they've lost all respect of mine. When you have male body parts hanging between your legs, you are not a girl. It is just the bottom line. Oh, man. And so this, folks, is after the election. And they still are not realizing the American people have spoken. Colin McGroin, that's an interesting name over on the Rumble chat, says that's what men who had their balls removed sound like. In many respects, he's correct. Matt Eddie says, I love when these bottom feeders attack each other. I don't know if the black guy was the bottom feeder. I don't know who he is, but I like him. I like what he had to say, and he seemed to keep a level head about himself. And that's the key to all this, is keep a level head. So when Mark Levin says that liberalism is a mental disorder, I think what you just witnessed there from that guy who says trans girls are girls, you clearly have a mental disorder. You clearly have an inability to see reality, and it doesn't get any more real than the difference between men and women, and God made it that way for a reason. Well, you don't have to look very far to see the difference between President Trump and Kamala Harris. And the American people decided who they like best, President Trump, for much of all of this that we are talking about. Hey, real quick, folks. Before I let you go, I want to tell you about my friends over at the Wellness Company. Folks, get one of these kits. I mean it. You need to have this in your arsenal of preparedness. I know you got food and water, at least you should. I know you got ammunition, at least you should. You have prescription medications. Inside this kit, 8 of the most popular prescription medications. All right? Handy guidebook here to help you through all of it. You got amoxicillin, ivermectin in here. Still hard to get. You'll get it all sent to your doorstep in this handy-dandy kit. God forbid, natural disaster, something else happens, drugstores close, cyber attacks, who knows? You can have those medications right there in your house, and it's great. All right, so I urge you, check that out. That's going to do it for us, folks. Real America's Voice show tonight. We're going to talk about the Senate race for control of the Senate as far as who should take over for Mitch McConnell. It looks like, now, I would love a guy like Josh Hawley to do it, but I don't think that's going to happen. But Rick Scott would be the best choice because I think he has a chance, though he's far down in the straw poll that they took. Mitch McConnell playing games with this. He wants to give it to Thune. Thune is a rhino. He may be I don't even want to say he's a decent guy because this is an establishment Republican, John Thune. So we're going to talk about all that. It's a very important race of how the Senate operates. Rick Scott would be the best. We'll show you Heritage Foundation ratings and all of those kinds of things. And we'll do that tonight on the Real America's Voice show. And then tomorrow I've collected some of the liberals melting down. So I want you to stick around for that as well. Folks, Stinchfield's Army rolls. All of you are so great. I appreciate every single one of you. We continue to hit records here on the Rumble channel. Again, spread this if you can far and wide. Get it to everybody you know. And my social media account is Stinchfield1776. The website is GrantStinchfield.com, GrantStinchfield.com. Sign up for the email list there. I can get in touch with you real easy. And again, we're in good times right now. Post-woke era starts now. And we're taking you right on into the Trump presidency, and it's going to be fabulous. God bless every single one of you. Stinchfield's Army rolls. We'll see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon.